What is going on, guys? I appreciate you, especially all of those that I see live. Looking like right now, we got, close to 70 people here live with me in real time, which I love, from all over. And some of you guys already in the comment box through where you guys are. Throw it in there. Chances are maybe there's someone else near you, as we're spread all over the country and even a couple of different countries based on what time of day you guys are tuning in. But I'm excited to have you guys here talking about the OPT, the Optimum Performance Training Model. So I already know if you made it into this room, the link, or you're watching this live somewhere, you're obviously working on this NASM process. And, again, give me a fist bump or like a hands up or a comment in the chat box if you are struggling with something in the NASM curriculum, or if you're excited to learn more about the OPT model. Just let me know. I want to make sure you guys are paying attention. I believe after teaching these types of courses for as long as I have, I've been teaching this stuff since like 2012 into 2014. And even the time we spend together, guys, over the next hour, all right, I'm going to do my best to keep it at just that, get you guys out of here by 4 p.m. Eastern, my time, is you got to be present. Right? You made the first great step by being in the room. You're in the room with me, which is huge. And I love it. I see everyone all over the place here, but you got to be present. So what I'm going to do, same promise for you guys, like if you can, right? Unless you got like a baby or an infant or something nearby, you got to attend to something else. Guess what? The world is going to be okay for the next hour. All right. If you guys want to get to the next level with this stuff, you have to focus. We've got to get the distractions out. And so I say that because I'm going to try to give you guys as much as I can. I will let you know that I'm going to be tackling questions throughout this process. So even though I have quite a bit I'm planning on getting through, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the comment box throughout the call. And, again, a lot of questions I'll probably tackle at the end. I'm going to have a Q&A section to what we're doing. But if I feel like there's a relevant question that you're asking about something we're talking through in real time, I'm going to tackle it. Because truthfully, this call, no agenda. I just want to help you guys. I want to help you because I know so many of you guys are going to make great trainers if we can just get you to the other side of this process. But there's this barrier in the way, right? There's this barrier in the way. So hopefully you guys are down with that. If you guys have to get out of here at some point in time, you're going to get access to the recording as well. But stay with me if at all possible. Stay with me and please interact. Ask me questions as we go. Because as, hey, you guys can see here right now, I'll throw my girl Stacy up here. That's right. We're interactive right now. It's like a production studio in here. Stacy can't wait to, hear how she can apply this model to her fitness classes, people on different levels. My goal for you not only is to know how to pass the exam. My goal for you guys is to know, why is this relevant? Because I already know most of you signed up for this certification because you want to be a good trainer, right? But then you get through the study process and we lose sight of what we set out to accomplish. We get so caught up in just the study process that we forget to actually learn how to be a good trainer along the way. So I'm going to make sure I tackle any questions, and I'm going to try to do my best to tell you guys how I use it, right? There's what we're going to learn, and then there's training in the real world, and there's a good amount of crossover, but it's not always black and white. All right. That's the reality. That's my promise to you guys, is to try to deliver. By the time we're done with this, you're going to be more knowledgeable, right? Can I guarantee you're going to be a master? Well, maybe. I'm going to give you everything I know that you need to know. More knowledgeable, and also just more confident with the OPT model. And one of the reasons that this is the topic of our webinar is I thought a lot about, like, what do people struggle with? It's not just the OPT model, but it's everything else that stems off of your understanding, because this is how we think about and approach programming. And so we got to make sure we got it down. All right. So that being said, guys, the world is hurting. All right. You signed up for this certification because you want to help people. I can confidently tell you that the world needs you. You guys know this from the material that you've gone through, right, in chapter 1 and chapter 2 inside of the NASM material. These are not new stats to us. The state of the world. You guys are the front lines. You are the front lines. People need you. I have had the benefit of spending the last 18 years of my life as a trainer. And although I'm now, over the last decade, I've been very fortunate to get to do a lot of other things like this, and teaching and educating and traveling around the world, teaching new trainers. Training is still my favorite thing, right? I wake up every day. I love it more than I did the day before. I love the people that I get to work with. I love that I get to be a part of their team. And so if that excites you, good. I love that. That's what this is all about. And don't lose sight of that as you guys keep studying and you get bogged down with the studying and the certification. Just keep in mind why we're doing it. Because once we get you there, I promise you, it's awesome. I love it. I love getting to be a part of the people's lives. And I love my clients get to be a part of my life. And that has taught me a lot about how to teach you guys in these certifications. So that's it. Don't lose sight of where we're going, because I truly believe people need you guys. You guys are the answer, right? You are the answer to the problems out there. And this is only going to grow. And I'm going to tell you guys too, even in the world of AI that we're all living in, right? It's like AI's taken over the world. I can guarantee you your career as a personal trainer has never been more secure and safer, because in the world of technology, you can't replace interpersonal human connection. You can't. I know more great trainers who are busier than they've ever been. So I think in the world of technology and everything that's happened, this is a great place to go into, because people, I believe, are going to continue to need to lean into relationships and into coaching, which is really what we do. It's all about relationships and coaching. So just want to confirm that you guys are doing the right thing and that I believe that you're in the right room. Right? Truthfully, as I look at the 93 people that are on here live and the close to 200 people that signed up for this webinar, some of you guys hopefully watching this after the fact, this is the connection, right? There's other great people out there. You're not alone. Even though you probably have felt alone in this process, you're not alone. There are other people having the same struggles and trying to accomplish the same thing. And so for me, that's why Axiom exists, just so we can continue to try to build this community around helping you guys succeed as new coaches and trainers. Cool. So we set the stage there. But here's the reality. And this is hopefully, again, you guys are on this call, so it's not going to be you, but a lot of people never make it. Guys, if you actually look at the stats at making it, and not just making it as a personal trainer, I mean, from like signing up with NASM or any of the major organizations, and then getting to still being a trainer 24 months later, if you really run the stats, it's like you have a greater chance of making it up Mount Everest. Right? Like I've run these statistics before, like how many people actually make it through the process you guys are doing, right? And you never find these numbers, but these are pretty reserved numbers, because online self-study programs, the passing rate, or really even the completion rate, crazy low. And you guys get it. It's tough. It's tough. So from that, right, maybe 65% of people who even go sit for the exam then pass, unless you're, hashtag, if you're one of my Axiom students that's in here right now, give me a fist bump in the comments so everyone else can see you in here. Unless you're an Axiom student, then your passing rate's much higher. But either way, we all know it's a challenging exam. And then from that, right, only, let's call it like 10% of trainers, and that might even be, a number that's different these days, actually are still doing it 18 months later. I don't say that to scare you guys away. I say that to say that like what you're doing right now, being here in this room, that's the stuff other people aren't doing. Right? They're not doing that. Also, my other goal for the session for you, knowing how to use the stuff you're learning, is also the difference maker, right? Because my intuition tells me that out of the 65% of people who pass the exam, there's a high percentage who don't know what to do with any of it. And so their confidence of getting into training, right, is not going to be super high, right? It's not going to be super high. All right. So I'm just saying that's what I'm here for. And whether you guys you're watching this video, you're training for another certification, doesn't even matter. You're going to take away a lot from this, because I'm going to try to relate it all to training real humans in real life. And so that being said, I would imagine most of you guys probably didn't make it into this webinar not being connected to me in some way, whether it's on YouTube with all the content that we have, whether it's part of our private Facebook group. We've got some of our actual Axiom students in here because we run live courses and everything in between. But regardless, my name is Coach Joe Drake, and I have been training for over 18 years. I've been teaching trainers through different organizations. I've taught through the NSCA. I taught the ACE program back when I worked in the university setting, but I've been teaching the NASM curriculum for over a decade now. We first started this company in 2014 as a way, selfishly, I had my own gym here in South Florida, and I'm like, man, I need to train trainers up at a little higher level. So we started the Academy kind of as a training program. And it was initially only in person, but over the years, we wanted to help more people. And so that's why we're here right now, is because I just realized how many good people like you guys, if we get to the other side of certification and then also get you to your first 6 to 12 months of training, your first like let's call it 6 to 10 clients, you're going to be fine. But it's just getting to that point, right? So we're focused on the OPT model and the certification today. But as we all stay connected, I would love to help you however I can, right? Because I'm very driven. I've been very fortunate to get a lot of help from a lot of people. Funny enough, as I shoot this video, I'm here inside of the Institute of Human Performance in South Florida, which is our home. It's where we run the academy. It's also where my wife and I train clients every day. And I'm only here because of someone who's helped me, right? JC Santana, who owns the facility and the building and the company, you know, all these years ago gave me time. And so that's really what this is all about. It's continuing to help each other and pay it forward. So if there's anything I can do for you guys beyond this call, I'm going to give you guys some opportunities. Lean into me. All right. Lean into me. But beyond that, guys, let's dive in. The OPT model, optimum performance training model. All right. Pop quiz for you guys. As you guys are, you know, especially those that are being nice and interactive with me in the chat box over here, as you take a look at this model, the OPT model, is this generally described from more of a linear or an undulating program design standpoint? I know you're like, Joe, wait a minute, you haven't talked about that yet, but I'm trying to make you guys apply your knowledge and see what we got here already. So as we look at the OPT model and as it's described, is it seen and described as more of a linear model, an undulating model? Could we do both, right? I want to see what you guys say over here in the comment section, just to get an idea. And also just to make sure you guys are still paying attention to me. And we'll talk more about this too, especially the application. Yeah, a lot of times when this is initially taught, it's taught and learned in a linear fashion. But you guys know, if you've gone through the curriculum, this could be an undulating model too. And we'll get to what that talks about. But what this is this is a way, look at it as a framework for us to think about progression and long-term training. You want to think about this as the journey that you're taking someone on. And where people often go wrong when they're studying this on their own is they don't have a lot of context to go along with this. So I'm going to make sure we're giving you a lot of context, a lot of real examples as we go. But if you think about it, if you were building a house, would you want to build it from the roof first? Or would you want to build a strong foundation? A strong foundation. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, as I say it out loud, I know you're like, yeah, of course, Joe, I'd want to build a foundation. Maybe some of you guys have built your own house or tore down and rebuilt something, whatever it is. Yeah, you got to establish a foundation first. And this is, even if you guys go and you were to get certified by a different organization, they might use different terminology, but for all intensive purposes, it's the same idea. Some places call stabilization, strength endurance, these first two phases, right, of our model, like GPP. General physical preparedness, you might see. Other places or other people might talk about it just about building a base, right? Building a base of training. But that's the idea. That's the real idea. And the concept behind the OPT model, which was originally come up with by a physical therapist, this guy, Michael Clark, who was a very smart man. But this also, as you guys continue on in the industry, there's a lot of controversy over like, how effective is the OPT model? You know, some people get too caught up in the physical therapy, corrective exercise elements of it. And they obviously, those have value. Getting people moving better has value. Getting people stronger has value. That's how I think about it. But you'll see a lot of different interpretations. The way that I think about it and the way that I use it is that it's about establishing a base of training before we add on layers of complication, which, you know, training complexity or intensity, right? Really, as we look at this model, as we go up the model from phase 1 to phase 5, we're building different capacities. And so what we're going to do is I want to make sure we take the time. I'm going to go through every phase. We're going to talk about like, what do you need to know about this phase? What are the primary goals inside of here? And then I'm going to also try to simplify it because I think, especially you guys can relate, maybe as you guys have been going through the material, how many of you guys, when you first started this stuff or as you dove into the OPT model and the curriculum, how many of you felt really comfortable and at home with stabilization training? Right? How many felt, or how many of you guys were like, man, stabilization training, it doesn't make sense to me. It's a little foreign. You guys let me know, right? Let me know what you think as far as stabilization goes. I'll tell you, because NASM was maybe like the third organization I was certified through. I was ACE certified, then I was NSCA certified, and then I went NASM, mostly because I wanted to know what's the difference? What's the difference? The human body is the human body, right? Physiology is physiology. But how each organization talks about training is a little bit different. And this concept of stabilization is seemingly the most different in the NASM material. And if you think about it, because it came from a physical therapist, that has a strong component there as well. But if you guys had to simplify it, and you guys can tell me, some of you guys say mostly okay, maybe it was a little foreign. What is our goal inside of stabilization? Because again, think about it. We're thinking long-term training for someone, not just weeks, but months and years down the road. We're trying to build all these capacities and potential for this person. What are we really trying to accomplish inside of phase one for stabilization? Right? You guys throw your comments in there for me. And you're like, I came here for you to tell me, Joe. I'm making you guys interact with me a little bit. But yeah, so stabilization phase one, I'm going to give you guys, we're going to talk through NASM terminology. I'm going to make it all make sense for you guys. And then we'll talk about what does that look like though? Because I'll be honest with you guys, when I first went through the NASM material, when I was getting NASM certified, I was like, is it all balance training? Like, and at this stage, I had already been training clients for a couple of years by the time I found NASM as an organization. So right away for me, I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know that my clients, I don't know if this new client is going to want to just be doing balance training for the first 4 weeks. I don't think that's going to be easy for me to sell people on training. And as I got more experience and time with it, I realized that that's not what it is, right? There are many components to this as well. But I like it. Some of the things I'm seeing here too, my girl Paula says stabilization is about performing exercise correctly with proper technique. So without a doubt, I mean, this is probably more common sense for you guys too. If you were to start with a newer client, whether they've been training or not, or especially if they don't have a lot of training experience, what would you want to focus on first? Chances are you would want to make sure that they are optimizing technique and position. And you can see here, the goal here in this NASM material, teach optimal movement patterns. That really means like optimizing technique, trying to get them moving well, right? I also see, Gabriella Matthews, create a foundation, kind of the same idea, right? Stacy says, preparing their muscles and joints. Yeah, right. We're trying to lay the foundation of movement, get them used to it. Performing exercises with proper technique, proper movement and technique. I love it. Stable joints, strengthen tendons and joints before going in. And by going in, I would imagine Stacy's talking about, like adding intensity. So these are things, when we think about it that way, it is kind of simple. It's like, okay, well, first off, I want to make sure I'm slowing things down. All right. So this is kind of where that tempo comes in. You guys throw it in the chat for me because you guys are smart cookies in here. And interactive learning is about you guys being engaged and involved. What's the tempo that we're looking for? Or better yet, what is the tempo that NASM suggests in stabilization? You guys give me that tempo. Throw those numbers in the chat box for me because we know we're trying to teach optimal movement patterns, which means like we're trying to get their technique as good as possible. That means the loads, how much weight we're using is not the most important, right? It's not the most important in the beginning. We're just trying to improve, muscular endurance, joint range of motion. Yeah, I love it. There it is, man. Where you guys are throwing it over here for me. We got that 4-2-1-1 tempo. And you guys can think about it. I'm going to guess a lot of you guys haven't actually trained with that tempo before because there's the misconception is that stabilization training always is going to feel really easy. It's going to be hard for different reasons because I can tell you if you take just a couple of your primary movements and not for a long time, maybe for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, take, let's call it 2 or 3 of your primary movements in your workout and just slow them down a little bit. Chances are, obviously, you're going to have to drop the loads and the weights, no doubt, because you're going much slower. I find for a lot of newer clients, what this allows us to do, and I say allows us because there's some, maybe let's talk the physiology piece, and then there's the coaching piece. By them slowing down, I get a little bit more time to coach them on what is good technique, what does great depth feel like. We can make little micro adjustments. So truthfully, when we slow the tempo down in those first couple of weeks, it's kind of easier to coach. So there's that piece. I would almost call that like a logistical benefit of slowing things down. And then physiological benefit, right, is adding in. So slower eccentrics, it's just giving if you think about motor learning, which is, this kind of higher level concept that's talked briefly about in the material. Motor learning is how our neurological system learns and adapts to the movements we're doing. And this kind of brings us to the concept that like exercises, although a squat or a push-up or a lunge or whatever, it seems relatively simple. They're all skills. They're all skills. And I can tell you, I've got 6 and 7-year-old daughters right now, and we're having fun playing sports. And one of my girls is playing basketball. And you can think about the coordination that goes into shooting a basketball. Obviously she's got to get it up there and the hoop's pretty high right now, but it's a relatively high skill as you're first starting out. You got to get used to the motion. I think about shooting thousands of free throws back in the day when I played basketball just to get my motion down. Well, it seems like there's more moving parts. It's a little bit more of a fluid motion, but for someone else, for a newer exerciser, for all intents and purposes, a squat could be like a free throw. It's your brain, right? Your nervous system learning how to accomplish the movement and then getting feedback and improving it. And so what happens is if you just take some of your major movement patterns, because as you guys can see here, even on the slide that I'm showing you guys, it's about optimal movement patterns, getting people moving better, improving technique. Also, what you'll find too is improving flexibility. When you do some slower eccentrics and you do some isometrics at the end range of motion, it's also naturally going to usually improve exercise specific range of motion, right? If you get to the bottom of a squat and you hold it, one of the reasons we get improvements in flexibility is because you're training your nervous system. Hey, you're okay here. Like, I'm going to get you stronger here. You can go a little bit deeper. And so for me, I find it's not uncommon with newer exercisers or even just new clients who are training with me. Maybe we haven't trained, before in the past. If we take these exercises like a squat or an RDL, right, for example, in that first set, I might even see the range of motion increase from rep to rep because they get down there, they might hold it for, 1 to 2 seconds and then come back up. We don't want to train like that forever, guys. We don't necessarily want to train slow forever. There's benefits of training with different tempos. But in the beginning, good for the client. They can learn the technique. Good for the coach. You've got time to coach it. There's a couple physiological benefits, right? Just this motor learning process when they're going a little slower. We've got more time to gather and absorb the feedback that's happening with our nervous system. And then even from the improving movement patterns, right? Let's call it not just flexibility, not just stretching for stretching's sake, but improving my depth in the squat. Slow down, little holds at the bottom, and then even adding loads to that can help us get better depth in the exercises. So shoot me a fist bump if that makes sense to you guys in the comments, because I want to make sure we have a good handle on what we're trying to accomplish from an NASM terminology standpoint, as well as an application standpoint. And I love it. My man Jarwan says, I tried this last week and it was a challenge. Slowing things down is actually harder than speeding things up. I just made a realization that this is similar to me learning a new song. Love that. Yeah. I mean, without a doubt, there is a benefit of training at different speeds. As we'll talk about with the OPT model, you want to activate fast twitch muscle fibers. At some point in time, we're going to need to move fast. But what happens for the average gym goer, you guys know how it is. Hey, you start banging out reps of a squat too fast in the gym, where most people, how do they want to move? They just want to get it done, right? They want to get it done. And oftentimes for someone who hasn't really developed great body control, body awareness, mastery of their body, then we lose position, right? A lot of momentum coming down. And so a lot of these exercises, we know the average person's wanting to speed it up. And so I find, simple thing, even if you just take your primary movements, squats, lunges, pushes, pulls, hinge, core exercises, and you slow them down, slow those babies down in the beginning, then you're going to get smoother, cleaner movements. And then now, as we start to progress in the OPT model and we layer on reps and intensity, weight, we layer on speed, hopefully the idea is we've solidified a stronger foundation and we're going to get more out of the things that are coming in our training and hopefully minimize maybe some of the risk of injury. We can't guarantee that, right? We can't guarantee that's going to minimize injury. But we're trying to improve all those things. And the other one you'll find in there is core stability. So if we're able to slow things down, again, I think even from a intention standpoint, it gives clients the opportunity to focus on what am I feeling where. And that seems like a real simple one, but if you can get people in tune with the exercise really early on and get those connections going, then they're going to learn their body better. They're going to learn how to push themselves better. You're not going to have to coach them on the same cues all the time, right? Which is still going to happen anyways. So I think everybody wins, but it is different for people. And it's probably different for many of you guys. Okay. So tell me this, as you guys are here, we're talking about stabilization. I know we're this is using this concept or this phase and jumping ahead to application, but I want to make sure we add enough good context around it. If you're going to do a workout with the client, let's just say most clients are probably going to get through 4 to 8 exercises in a workout. And I just say that if you guys are lifting heavier, if you're doing warm-ups, you're lifting much heavier, you're taking more rest in between, right? I have great workouts where I only do 4 exercises. Most clients, it's probably like 5 to 8. I might be supersetting some exercises. I'm throwing in some accessory work. That's a pretty good range. You could apply for most people. So my question for you guys is, and you can let me know in the comments wherever you're watching this, is are you going to apply the slow tempo, that 4-2-1-1 tempo, to all 8 exercises? So if you're thinking about that workout, that hour training session, are you going to apply that tempo to every exercise? Tell me yes or no in the comments so I get a sense of how we're feeling about that one. We're going to apply it to every exercise. Are we going to apply it to some exercises? Yeah, and I see some of my students in here, and we've talked about this from the academy. No, love it. Yeah, love it. Paula, boring. Shay, yeah, no, they would get bored. Not only guys, Montana, no, yeah, you guys are on point. I think this gets lost in the material when you're doing this on your own. Is you got to remember we're delivering on an experience and a service for people. And chances are, if you're talking about stabilization, you're talking about a new client. And we want them to also enjoy our training enough to want to come back. That's going to matter more than perfect programming. So I'll tell you what I have found is a sweet spot of how to do this is, let's say in 8 exercises, they're working out on Monday, they're working out on Thursday, twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever. Chances are in those workouts, there's probably 2 or 3 primary moves, right? Maybe it's a goblet squat. Maybe it's a dumbbell chest press. Maybe it's a dumbbell row. Maybe it's a kettlebell RDL. Maybe it's whatever your compound moves are, your big movers. There's probably 2, max 3 of those. I find 2 is probably the sweet spot. That if you can apply that slower tempo with the isometrics, even to just 2 primary movements in that day, that's probably good enough, right? You got to think about, we're playing the long game with this client. And then the other exercises, they're still just normal speeds, normal but controlled. But there's going to be a difference, right? You guys can see it. Let's suffer through this together a little bit. If I'm really doing, even if it's not 4-2-1-1, but it's 3 to 4 seconds down and like a 1 second ISO, going slow, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, back up, right? 12 to 20 reps, that's going to be a really long set. So it's going to be a really long set. So I would say when you do those things, even if it's not perfect 4-2-1-1, I would say even just slow eccentric, purposeful pause, normal back up. Okay, I'm not so crazy where I feel like it has to be exactly that, because honestly, even the research on tempos is very mixed on how beneficial it is. But I do like slow eccentric, controlled, purposeful isometric, normal concentric. That alone is going to be great. And I'm going to apply that to like maybe 2 lifts, Everything else, let's just do it controlled, right? Controlled. Control the eccentric, control the concentric. Not everything has to have an isometric pause. Because if you do that with just a few main lifts, I find for clients, even for like just 2 to 3 weeks, some people progress pretty quickly. Some people might need a little bit longer. From an experience standpoint, it's not overwhelming and boring. But from a change standpoint, you can get some pretty significant improvements in technique, in position, and body awareness with that approach. All right. So just some things to think about. And you won't know unless you do it on yourselves. This is probably just a lesson for training guys. Don't be applying concepts with clients that you're not willing to try yourself. And so if you plan on trying to use some of this, like the OPT model, you need to take yourself through pieces of it. And what I can tell you about the stabilization component, the cool part is like, maybe that's a primary goal for somebody for a couple of weeks, because you're like, man, I just got to get them used to movement. I got to get them moving better. So that's going to be kind of primary. Not everything has to fit it exactly. But then as your clients progress along, right? I have clients who they've been, training with me for years, right? Actually, I had a guy train with me this morning that I've had train with me for like 8 or 9 years. He is fit. He is an advanced exerciser. Guess where that stabilization tempo shows up? In our warm-ups, right? It's in our warm-ups. So I take pieces of that, and it doesn't necessarily have to go away, but now it doesn't have to be a main part of our training, right? If we're doing like some heavier lunges or goblet squats or chest press in our workout, I might just do 1 to 2 sets of like slow tempo with a little power, right? Maybe we're doing like 3-4 seconds down, a little ISO, and then driving back up. So you can kind of sneak it back in further down the line. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. All right. But I love the interaction I'm getting over here. I see some people talking about like slower eccentric, more challenging. Yeah. Well, you'll find this is where, as we get into the other phases, you can bring tempo back in as a variable to play with, but your intention, and that is the key here to me, is your intention with the phases is really what matters, because you could use the same exercise in every phase. It's all how we use it. All right. So cool. I think you guys are crushing this one with stabilization. And just so we use a couple terms that I know we're going to show up for you, optimum neuromuscular efficiency. Long word, body awareness, right? It's our body's ability to recruit the right muscles at the right time. And so what that might look like is it might look like smoother, better technique. Easier to accomplish when we slow things down. We try to get them used to what is the bottom range of motion? What should this feel like? So cool. And then this is where I think people get a little confused is the progression for this stage of training is proprioceptively based. Now, this is where people think, I got to get them on one leg. I got to turn everything into a balance exercise on a Bosu ball. No, that's not the answer. That's not the answer. Truthfully, a lot of people don't need to move to single leg stuff for a while. You might throw a balance exercise in their warm up, right? Somewhere in there, get them on a single leg. That's great. I love that for the nervous system. Get them communicating from the foot up to the body. But then a lot of your exercises, right? The bulk of your workout's probably going to be more stable movements in the beginning. And then as you progress that, yeah, the idea of like, okay, if I do want to improve stability and stabilization, especially not just for beginner clients, but as my clients cycle back through these phases, or I bring stability into my client's program who might be further along, well, yeah, maybe I'm going to train some more lunge positions than just squat positions. Even though the lunge, both feet are on the ground, we're less stable. There's a lot more stability. I got to use my ankles, my adductors, my abductors, all these stabilizer muscles way more because my body's controlling that. You know, a Bulgarian split squat, lots of stability there. So a lot of these things kind of mix and meld together, but don't feel like you need to turn it into a balanced training whole routine because chances are that might actually work against you. Funny enough, if you just get people stronger with these basic, more stable movements, it'll help translate over. And then when you start to put them into some split stances, some lunge positions, split stance cable rows, split stance cable presses, things that require more balance and stability, they're more likely to succeed. And then you'll get into things like step ups and step downs, right? There's just some progression here, but don't feel like you got to jump into it because we still want them to get enough. We want them to be able to do it well enough to get a training effect versus kind of falling all over the place. But we can tackle that more. All right. So you guys give me a thumbs up in the chat if you guys are feeling pretty good about stabilization. Otherwise, I can definitely tackle more questions surrounding that later on. Okay. And we're going to talk variables, acute variables for all these things too. So don't you guys worry. We're going to get to that. But I just want to talk about the intentions first. The strength level of the OPT model. So we've got 3 stages really, right? And then we have 5 phases. So we've got stabilization, we've got strength, and we've got power. And now within the strength level, we've got 3 kind of sub phases or sections. Endurance, hypertrophy, or muscular development, right? The terms have kind of been changed over time, but for all intensive purposes, it's the same idea. And then maximal strength training. All right. So you guys tell me in the chat box too, when we're talking about phase 2 endurance, what is the goal? What is the goal that's now a little different in strength endurance than stabilization, right? How do we separate these two? Because once we start looking at the acute variables, you'll see the acute variables are almost the exact same. The same number of sets, the same number of reps. The tempo can be a little bit different. And also the intention, like there's some other things that we're now changing. All right. So you guys can throw it in there. So maybe the loads are going to come up a little bit. Yeah. So if we start looking at that endurance, now we are actually looking to improve prime mover strength. So here's the thing I didn't mention or talk about before, but initially people are going to get stronger in those first few weeks of working out because of neurological adaptations. You know, not to say there's no tissue change happening or no muscular damage and those things, but you'll find some people will get significantly stronger. Like I think about when I first started working out and some of the guys in my football, you know, I played football and baseball and sports growing up, and guys in the weight room would come in and their squat or their bench would go up like 50 pounds in a couple of weeks or a month. They didn't gain that much muscle. Their nervous system just got better at recruiting it. So keep in mind, that's one of the things we're trying to improve in that first base, stabilization, establishing the foundation, is get them more used to the exercises so their body recruits more of the muscles. Now that we've done a little bit of that, now we can start to add a little bit more load, right? It's still going to be with endurance, 40 to 60% of someone's 1 rep max. So it's not super high on the resistance side, but reps are similar, right? General recommendations like 12 to 20. And now we are going to challenge some more actual like muscles, right? The ability endurance, strength endurance or muscular endurance, the ability to maintain force output. That is our goal here, right? That's our goal. So you'll have some variables you can play with. It's going to be moderate to higher reps, 12 to 20 reps. You can also shorten rest periods as people go further along. And within those ranges, try to get people stronger within the rep range. And so if you do that for a period of time, benefit's going to be more muscular endurance. I will tell you guys, I like that. So let's see here. I like one muscular endurance. I'm just seeing what we got out here. Maintaining force output over time. There you go. Mary's on top of it, understanding with what it is. Yeah, we don't even have to change the moves a lot. But now maybe we don't have to do the same 4-2-1 tempo. It just might be more controlled. So can you guys tell me, what might the tempo look like for more muscular endurance training? Like how fast are the eccentrics? How fast are the concentrics? This can vary, by the way. But if I'm talking about a singular exercise, it might be more like 2-0-2, right? It might be like 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up. Like you're like a little piston, all right? Just consistent tempo. Yeah, or 2-1-2, so you can, again, as you phase through this, you could keep the isometric a little bit or you could get rid of it. But for the most part, controlled. Yeah, and I think if you look at like this 2-second eccentric, 2-second concentric kind of thing, that's going to be pretty safe to go with. So it's not quite as slow as what we were doing, but it's still controlled. Right. And we're trying to keep some consistency there too. You'll also see here on the table 13-9, NASM gives you an example, a way. And I'm going to tell you guys, this isn't the only way to do it. And a lot of times it's not how I do it. So that's okay. But one way, if you wanted to train this phase while still maintaining some of the stability benefits and focus that you were doing in the first phase, then you could pair together more of a stable movement with an unstable movement. That's the idea. So I would do, let's say, a bench press or whatever it is, something that's more of a strength focus exercise. I would still do it though. Here's the caveat with muscular endurance reps and loads. So I would do, let's say 12 reps, 2-0-2 tempo. And then I would go right into more of a stabilization focused version. So push-up could be one. You'll see in the textbook, like push-ups, like on a Bosu ball. You could think a single arm cable press, which is like it's similar muscle groups. It's a similar movement, but the focus is a little bit more stability. And so you can think, yeah, if I stack these two exercises, they're pretty similar muscle groups. If I do them back to back like that, and I train like that for 4 to 6 weeks, yeah, I mean, that's going to improve my muscular endurance. And this is also, guys, where you'll find, as we look at these phases, one thing to think about is it's not like you're turning light switches on and off. Like once I go from stabilization to muscular endurance, like I turn this light switch off and I turn this one on. It's like a sliding scale, right? Or even the way I've described it in the past for people is think about like a VIP rope, right? In the club, which I have no idea what that's like. But let's just imagine we got a VIP rope or whatever, you're at the airport or something. If I pull from stabilization to hypertrophy, if I pull up anywhere on that rope, it's going to pull up the areas around it. So when I'm doing muscular endurance training, I might get a little bit of stabilization benefit. I might get a little bit of muscular development benefit, right? And then as I move to muscular development, hypertrophy, I might get a little bit of endurance and also a little bit of strength. And as I move to strength, I might get a little hypertrophy, a little power. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. You're going to have a primary target, but you're going to get probably a little bit of crossover on either side with some of these other phases. So I just like to point that out because it's definitely not black and white, like you're turning one on and turning one off. Okay. So feel free if you guys have questions. I find muscular endurance, this one seems to make more sense for us. Stabilization is a little like hazier. Muscular endurance, we're like, okay, yeah, I see like 12 to 20 reps, like moderate loads, 1 to 3 sets, especially guys, if you're doing exercises for like 20 reps, don't be doing 3 or 4 sets. Like that's going to bleed over into like almost probably even more hypertrophy. It's a lot of volume. I'd rather see like 2 to 3 sets, right? You get 1 set to like teach the exercise, the next 2 to execute it if you're really trying to train muscular endurance. But you can also just do this with 1 exercise. You don't have to do the superset, just so you guys know, right? I would argue if I were to do, and I just like moving around, give you guys examples. If I have somebody and I'm kind of in this phase 1, phase 2, which truthfully for me, stabilization and muscular endurance, they kind of become one phase. That's just generally how it ends up applying for me, where, there's a little bit of the slow tempo for maybe 2 weeks, max 3 weeks, and then it kind of rolls right into muscular endurance. So if you looked at that whole first 4 to 6 weeks, it just might look like a combination of phase 1 and phase 2. So I just say that to give you guys permission that like, that's okay. That's definitely how I train clients. versus like keeping someone totally stuck in one phase. But if I were to do just a single arm cable row, right? I have a cable, right out in front of my chest. I'm in a split stand. So it's kind of like, it's a slightly less stable position. And if I'm doing, 12 to 20 repetitions, let's say I do like 2 or 3 sets of like 15 reps, I would say that exercise by itself, you're getting some, some muscular endurance benefit, especially I might do one arm and then do the other. And then if I'm trying to challenge rest periods, I might go right back to doing the other arm, or I'm not having total rest in between. So there's a lot of ways of doing it. A lot of it comes down to like, what are you trying to accomplish? What's the exercise you're using? How are you pairing it together? And what do the variables look like? Okay. Yeah. And this is, I love this. This is where we'll kind of get, Mario says, doesn't that fall more into phase 3? Any exercise could fit into any phase. The difference might be the intensity in which I'm training. So we'll end up going into phase 3 next, which is muscular development or hypertrophy. The difference might be, yes, I could use that single arm cable row in every phase up to like hypertrophy, because honestly, it's not the most stable move. For a stronger client, it's going to be hard for you to overload the back that way. But I'll give you guys just a quick example since we're talking about it. And I'll go just full, let's go full demo mode since we're here trying to make this practical and real for you guys. Let's just say I'm talking about the cable row or a band row or something, right? But let's just say cable, because there's probably more cables in the gyms you guys are at. Well, if I'm going to use this for stabilization, well, guess what? Tempo, right? And in one little isometric, I'm going to do the iso here because this is going to be great for setting the shoulder blade stability. Maybe a 1 to 2 second iso, 3 to 4 seconds out. 1 second in, squeeze, 3 to 4 seconds out, right? And I could do that for 12 to 20 reps, right? Based on where I'm at, right? I might start at 12, progress up a little bit. My personal preference for stabilization is I don't like going super high reps. I'd rather get high quality. But then if I wanted to progress that into muscular endurance, well, guess what? The weight goes up a little bit. My tempo now is more going to be 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds. But keep in mind, I'm not really going for failure. If I take this exercise and I start going for like failure where I'm going to fail at like 12 reps, even to 15 reps, that's where you're kind of your muscular endurance and you're shifting a little bit more towards hypertrophy. And that's a good example of where intention in your exercises matter, guys. If I do 3 sets and I'm coaching my client to like really hit failure on that like second and third set, whatever the rep range is, whether it's like 10 reps, 12 reps, 15 reps. But if I'm trying to get to failure where they're like, I can't do another rep, that's probably going to be a little bit more hypertrophy, muscle gain intention. Versus with muscular endurance, I don't have to reach a 9 out of a 10 on the intensity scale. I don't need to hit failure, right? I just need to be able, it's still like relatively challenging, but for me on a scale of 0 to 10, it might be a 7 or an 8. I don't need a 9 or a 10. So I'm glad you asked that question, because a lot of exercises, you feel like they would be a good fit in just one, but they could kind of apply in different ones. Now, I will say, if we're talking about max strength and power, the single arm cable row, probably not the best exercise. As far as max strength goes, I'm too unstable in this position. I don't have enough leverage to really like train for max strength. Power, maybe, but power would be a little different. That might be, boom, I'm doing like a lighter weight. Not all cables are great for that, but yet Kaiser cables are good. So just a good example of how we can think about the movements and the exercises that we're using, and how we apply them is going to help dictate really what's the outcome going to be. What's the focus of our phase? All right. So that's what happens. You guys ask questions and I get off on tangents, but we're back. We're back in here. Okay. Let's keep it rolling. All right. So I feel like phase 2, you guys got down. Phase 3, muscular development, hypertrophy. We are trying to build larger muscles. And that is my best, Arnold. That's all I got. If I try to do any more, I'll probably lose my voice. But this used to be called hypertrophy training. Now it's called muscular development, just to make sure people understand really what we're talking about. We're trying to build larger muscles. So with muscular endurance, it's the ability to maintain force output. With muscular development, we're trying to build larger muscles. So you guys tell me, I kind of already said it before, and I'm sure you guys are aware of all the research out there about muscle building right now. If you want to build muscle, what's the most important variable in your training? Especially if we just talk about a specific exercise, what do you need to be getting close to if you want to build muscle? Because what we have found is muscle can be built. We can achieve hypertrophy at almost any rep range. right? So the rep range matters less than something else. What's the thing we need to get close to if we're trying to really build muscle? I know you guys got this one. Throw it in the chat box for me. What do we need to be accomplishing in our training if we're going to build it? Yeah, there we go. Caitlin's got it right here. We need to be close to failure, right? Close to it. Doesn't mean every exercise, every rep, but like somewhere in our training, we've got to be approaching failure. There's a concept also called reps in reserve, which is like, how many more could you have done? And this is one I try to think about and talk about with clients. Once we're done with a set, sometimes it's hard for them to know how hard they're working. And so it's like, well, could you have done 5 more? Yeah, I could have done 5 more. Okay, like if hypertrophy is the goal, we got to go up. We don't have to hit ugly form failure, but we got to be like within 1 to 3 reps, right? Where it's like, man, I think I probably could have got 1 or 2 more. All right, cool. That's perfect. We're probably right in the right spot. So that's what we want. Now, I will say feasibly, most people will do best in the 8 to 12 rep range, right? So we've always kind of talked about that as the hypertrophy range, but a lot of it is because when we get below, when we start getting like 6 and 5 and 4 reps, there's a high level of skill you need to have to lift that heavy, right? Safely, and to really like train to failure with heavier weights. And then on the other side, if you truly train to failure at like 15, 20, 25 reps, it's awful. It's just not fun. Like people literally will throw up sometimes if you're doing lower body stuff for that many reps. So you can train in a lot of rep ranges, but I still find 8 to 12, or really if I wanted to expand the range, 6 to 15 is kind of like 6 is usually as low as I'll go. 15 is as high as I'll go. And the cool part is that gives you a lot of range, right? Let's say you got a client who, like many clients, they might, once they get into hypertrophy or muscular development training, that might be the main goal for years in some way, right? In years. And so you're going to cycle in and out a little bit, but even like, throughout your blocks of training, you might have a block of training where you do train more 12 to 15 for 4 to 6 weeks. And then maybe the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe you're training like 8 to 12. And then the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe you're training 6 to 10, right? So you can kind of train the range of, and there seems to be some benefit. I think psychologically there's a benefit of the adaptation and change. I also think, on that lower end with like more 6 repetitions, maybe you're getting more fast twitch muscle fiber activation. So there's just different benefits to think about there. But there are so many ways we can train hypertrophy. All right. So many ways we can train hypertrophy. So we'll talk about the variables there again, probably where most of you guys are training. Let me go ahead and get back out of here. Boom. And then max strength. Max strength is going to be, as we know, it's going to be much heavier loads. This is going to be between 1 and 6 reps. And I would love for a lot of people to get here. I would say for the general population that I'm working with, even if I'm training true max strength, I find you can get some good benefits in like the 3 to 6, 3 to 8 range. You're kind of getting crossover between max strength and like heavier hypertrophy. And so I find when you start getting below 3, like, 3 reps, 4 reps, the skill component has to be really high. People have to rest a lot in between. So it doesn't always apply as much, but there's big benefit here. Now we're going back to training neurological system again. With muscular development, we're trying to mechanically overload tissues so that they get damaged, they recover, they repair, they get bigger. With max strength training, now we're trying to get everything to fire together at the same time, right? We're trying to develop as much force as possible. And this can be done with lots of exercises, but we see here too, this can tend to lend itself pretty well with like barbell type work. Again, barbells could be used for everything, but maximal strength training. So, arguable. Some people would argue whether every client needs to get there. I think long-term, I would still love clients to get to a place where they can safely, throughout the year, occasionally lift more in this, like, let's call it like 4 to 8, 4 to 6 range. Tough for everyone to do because of orthopedic limitations, but there could be some big benefits. We all know fast twitch muscle fibers, they're impacted the most with age. We lose them faster than anything else. And so getting into some heavier hypertrophy, almost max strength work could have some benefits there for people as well. Okay. And then last but not least, power training, phase 5. You guys probably know this, right? I'm going to flow into some comments here too. We're looking at rate of force production. How quickly can we develop force? So this might be medicine ball exercises, jumping exercises. If you guys are familiar with Olympic lifting, which none of my clients do, just from a orthopedic and goal standpoint, that would be power training, right? Power training, kettlebell swings, dumbbell snatches. There's lots of options here, but I actually find body weight power work plus medicine ball work can get you pretty far for the average person, and can do it, especially with medicine balls. It's limited. You can't train as much lower body power with medicine balls, but core power, upper body, you can usually get people throwing some med balls around pretty quickly, pretty safely, and I would argue, especially knowing everything that everyone's talking about right now with longevity and muscle mass and fast twitch muscle fibers, we know these have a big impact on us as we age, our quality of life, mortality. Man, I definitely kind of want to get people, if I can safely get them with whatever injuries they've got. And I can't do it with every one of my clients because some of them just have some other things going on. But if I can get them training some power, I want them to. All right. Even though, is power training going to change your physique the most? Probably not. Right. Probably not. You don't see too many, Olympia competitors doing a lot of power work. But from a functional standpoint, longevity standpoint, being able to go hiking, play tennis, play pickleball, do whatever with your kids, and not get hurt. Yeah, it's got a lot of benefits. So there's some things to be said about that too. So cool. Awesome. So let's see here too. We got a couple questions here. How does this phase work for females looking at weight loss and not to bulk? They're scared of bulk. Gosh, I mean, we could have a whole webinar on that, but I can tell you there's not a single client that I can think of that would not benefit from getting into muscular development phase. Some of it is just how you talk about it, right? We all know you're not going to accidentally gain muscle. Most of us have been training our whole lives trying to gain muscle, and it's a very slow process. So we've all gotten that for a long period of time, men or women. I have some men too. They're like, man, I'm not trying to get bulky. And I'm usually telling them, I'm like, don't worry, you won't, because I'm trying hard every day. So don't feel like just because all of a sudden you start driving, like you're gonna be driving like a Ferrari, you just because you get in the weight room. So that is, you'll run into those things. And I'm not saying it's easy, but over time, it's your job as a coach to get buy-in from people. If you want them to succeed long-term, you got to get people more comfortable lifting more weight, because literally their life depends upon it in some ways. We're not building weights with 5-pound dumbbells, or we're not building muscle with 5-pound dumbbells. We got to find some other ways to do it. All right. So cool. So I love it, guys. More questions you guys can throw at me too, but at least we've covered kind of some of the basics of the OPT model. And I know some of this is review for you, but trying to give you guys some context. Let's talk about the other stuff you guys need to know as we get into this. So if you're thinking from a study standpoint, guys, table 20-3 is a great one, the acute variables. And as I pointed out, phase 1 and phase 2, stabilization and muscular endurance, the reason that they really end up looking like one phase for me as a trainer, my practical application, is because they're almost the same. The only difference is a little difference in my intention with the primary exercises I'm coaching. And that's why I said, even if you just take a couple of your primary moves, one squat, lunge, push, pull, hinge, all your, primary, movement categories, movement patterns, and you slow it down for a couple of weeks, and you make them improve how they move and their movement patterns. And then all of a sudden, maybe that 4-2-1 tempo becomes like a 2-1-1 tempo. And then it becomes a 2-0-2 tempo. All of a sudden, your stabilization is phased kind of right into muscular endurance. And it's just this one fluid, maybe 6-week phase for somebody, which is really, even if you look at other organizations, guys, it's a great, you're setting the stage, you're setting the base of training for that person. Again, some places call it GPP, general physical preparedness. But it's just your initial phase of training for this person. Sets don't have to be super high. Weight's not going to be high. Hypertrophy, we talked about. This can happen at any rep range. For most people, 6 to 12 is feasible. As I mentioned for you guys, even 6 to 15 is probably the range I stay in with most of the clients I work with. We got more volume. The body does tend to, you look at the research out there on hypertrophy, volume does tend to have a positive impact on muscle gain to a point. Right? To a point. Some people take it too far, but here, maybe 3 to 6 sets of an exercise for 6 to 12 reps, and the weight's gone up now, right? So chances are, soreness is never our goal. We all know that, but chances are people might be a little bit more sore as we've now transitioned into this phase, because we have some heavier loads. The volume is a little greater. And so, you may, again, the goal kind of is muscle damage in some ways, and then obviously recover and repair from that. And then we've got max strength and power, which we can see across the board for both of them. Reps are lower, max strength 1 to 5, power 1 to 10. There's a little bit of a range because you can kind of have power endurance, they call it. 4 to 6 sets, 3 to 6 sets. And the major difference with max strength, loads are high. We're trying to train at 90% or greater of someone's 1 rep max. So this, we're lifting very heavy. We're resting a lot in between. You guys tell me in the comments, how long, if we're truly trying to maximize strength and power, how long should we rest, at least between that same exercise? Because obviously, like, we could do an exercise and then we could do like a stability move. And so, we're doing some active recovery in between there. But about how long, if you were doing a set of hex bar deadlift for 3 to 5 reps and you wanted to come back and perform great on the next set, how long should that person probably rest in between sets? My guess is probably much longer than most people are resting, right? And so I see here, Kevin says 60 to 90 seconds. Katie says 1 to 3 minutes. If you're really training max strength or power, you want to be on the higher end. You want to be like 2 to 4 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, which sounds like a long time, but it's because it takes just a little bit longer to get all the ATP back. And there's even plenty of new research out there with like Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, who's a big name in hypertrophy research, talking about like kind of being closer to that 2-minute mark, even with just hypertrophy, seems to have a positive impact. But again, as trainers, some of that comes down to the experience we're delivering. Some people don't love just sitting around that long. If you're smart, though, this is beyond where we're in here. If you're smart, you can pair exercise as well. I might have a heavy hex bar deadlift, and then I might be doing like a core stability exercise in between. So that way that they are doing some things, but they don't have to take 3 to 4 minutes of complete rest. They might finish both of those and then take a minute of rest and then get back in. So, I mean, honestly, it's all about the sauce and how you put it all together. But this is a great table for you guys. You guys need to know this stuff. And I think from an application standpoint, a lot of it just comes down to how do I deliver, right, on stabilization training or hypertrophy training. And what you'll find is you might not have every single exercise in your entire program fit perfectly just to the phase. Even, for example, if any of you have ever trained max strength, there are programs out there like 5-3-1, 5x5. I definitely trained quite a bit of max strength in high school into college. I stopped playing baseball in college and just got really into strength training. And I was definitely training like maximal strength there. But what you'll find, even with these true max strength programs, you're not doing 6 to 8 exercises for 5 sets of 5, right? It would be hard to recover from it. You wouldn't really be able to give each exercise your all. What you'll find is usually you have 1 or 2 primary exercises. I might have had like a barbell deadlift and like a dumbbell bench press in separate sets. And those were my primary moves for like, heavier max strength reps. And then the rest of your workout was more hypertrophy work. It was like 3 to 4 sets of 10. And so just know, like, you're going to have a primary target and certain exercises that are directly to those reps and the volumes, but the rest of it's going to be supporting accessory work. All right. And this is where the rubber meets the road when you guys start training and programming. And the best way to start right now, even for you guys to like learn the OPT model for your exam, is be doing it on yourself, right? Do it on yourself. Take yourself through like a true 3-week phase of stabilization training where you hit some of your primary movements. You're doing a goblet squat for 4-2-1 tempo for 12 reps for 2 sets. First off, it'll be humbling to do that, but it's also going to be super educational for you as a coach. So you know how to coach people on it. And you also know what to do and what not to do. Like doing 2 sets of 15 per leg with slow tempo lunges is brutal. It's brutal. You might not want to go to with that week 1 for a client who hasn't trained in years. Not only is it going to be tough, but because you're doing the slow eccentrics, guys, that's where your soreness comes from. Right. And when you have new clients coming in, you kind of want to walk that line. Like, it's okay for them to, the next day or two be like, oh man, I know I worked out. Right. Like, I think that usually creates a positive impact. They're like, man, I feel like I'm doing something. But if they're so crippled sore and they haven't worked out in a long time, usually that's not the most motivating. So just be careful with the stabilization and the slower tempos. I'd rather see someone do 1 or 2 sets than 3 on day 1, because you can always add in. And that's just the magic and how you guys think about applying some of this stuff. All right, but those are the variables that we need to know from the OPT model. And I really also I won't go too deep on this one, but I like this visual in your material, guys, because there is the below the surface non-sexy stuff that people aren't going to usually do on their own. And I think if you do it right, we can do it with clients and it's not boring. I like to think that if anything, I'm probably the magic sauce for the clients that come in and work with me. You know, I'm enthusiastic about what I do. I only have them do things that I'm bought into. So if you're not bought into it, don't do it, at least not yet, until you've experienced it and you're bought into it, because then it's easy to get people to do things they wouldn't normally do. It's easy to make them do isometrics when I'm used to doing isometrics in my own training, and I can talk about why we're doing it. And they see me posting videos on social doing it. They know I'm not just BSing them. I'm making them do the same things that fit within what I do. And that's the kind of stuff we're talking about, right? Phase 1, phase 2, we're setting the foundation. It's usually not the sexiest stuff, but if we want to get to the sexy stuff, like building muscle and doing power movements, this is the path to get there. This is the path to get there for people, okay? The other thing I want to point out for you guys, and I won't go deep on every piece of this, but if you guys think about it, so the OPT model is talked about in a couple different places in the material. It's introduced in the beginning. It's introduced again in chapter 13 at the start of section 5. And then it's talked about a lot in chapter 20 and 21 with resistance training and programming. But what you'll see is it actually shows up throughout all of section 5. When you guys start going through some of these other concepts, if you're studying for your material and you're thinking about flexibility training, if you're thinking about cardiorespiratory training, you're thinking about core training, you're thinking about balance training, plyometric training, the idea, and they give you in the chapter these level 1, 2, and 3 progressions, it's the same concept. It might not be the same reps and sets, because when we learn about the volume and the reps and sets here, this is more specific to resistance training for the most part, right? But it's the same concepts as we get into these other chapters. When you talk about flexibility, static flexibility is kind of the base. It's the easiest one to introduce. You know, more dynamic stretching and dynamic movements, it's a little bit more challenging. So it doesn't mean you can't do that for somebody, but it's just thinking about how these layer up. Same thing with our cardiorespiratory. You know, zone 1 and zone 2, lower intensity, below your first ventilatory threshold, right? As I'm kind of relating the material for you guys, it doesn't seem like it's enough, right? Because it's conversational. But if someone can't do that for 30 minutes, they don't have an aerobic base. And so if we throw them right into intervals, it's kind of the same thing as me throwing them right into box jumps. We're skipping the steps. And if you care about your clients long-term, you're going to be bought in enough. You're going to get them bought in on the process. And I'll tie it back again. That means you yourself have to experience the process, which for me as a new trainer was like a big learning curve. I really had to take myself through a lot of these things to understand what it was like and to know how to put people through them. But it's the same idea. Build a base, slowly add intensity before we go to maximal efforts. We see it in cardiorespiratory training. We see it in core training. Stage 1, isometrics. Stage 2, strength work, moving the core, you know, sagittally, frontally, transverse in all directions, and then maybe getting to like explosive stuff with the core. And then same thing, even with balance and with plyometrics. With plyometrics, teach them how to land first. It's pretty much stabilization training. Then we add a little bit of intensity and amplitude. That's like the strength phase of plyometrics. And then we go maximal efforts and more challenging positions. It's like the power phase of the plyometry training. So that's why I wanted to tie together for you guys, because obviously we learn a lot in regards to strength training, but this kind of the idea where I think you guys can succeed within the material is also thinking in the back of your mind how these 3 phases kind of fit in to these other pieces of the puzzle. And that's the kind of the interesting part is you might have someone, maybe they're in phase 3 with resistance training, but they're in phase 1 of plyometrics. So even within these different capacities, you may have people at different stages, and that's okay. Not everyone is going to prioritize the same phases. But beyond that, guys, I also want to bring it back, tie it back to, you know, just be paying attention, especially for those of you who are in this webinar and you're like, man, I want to pass my exam. Keep in mind where this stuff fits in. The OPT model will be tucked into a lot of things. OPT model is at the center of section 6. It's kind of at the center of section 5, right, as well. So it's going to play a pretty big role in what you guys need to know, because in general, NASM, they want you to know that the practical elements of thinking about training and programming are paramount for your role as a trainer, okay? And beyond that, guys, just my advice for you guys, beyond our little time together on this webinar, is just work the process. You know, a lot of people complain about like, NASM, they just want me to fail so they can have me buy a retake. No, that's not it. That's not it, right? I know, because they contract me. I get to work internally with NASM, but you got to do the hard work. A lot of people who don't pass, they don't have the right approach towards studying. They have a poor study approach. They're trying to hack the exam. They're trying to get away with doing minimal work, and it's just not going to cut it. You're going to have to put in a lot of time. I know you probably already have. But I'm also happy to help you guys make sure you're putting in time on the right things, because part of it is oftentimes people might be spending time on the wrong things, and that's a challenge. Okay. So in general, if this process was easy, guys, everybody would do it. You already took a step to be here on the webinar with me. So do the hard work. And I hope some of our conversation around the OPT model has been helpful for you guys today. And if you guys also, I'm going to throw it out there, right? Because I'm going to tackle more Q&A, but I would be, I would feel like I'm failing you if I didn't make sure you guys know that, like, this is what I do. This is what Axiom does, is bring this stuff to life. So if you like the idea, and I know I'm beneficial, I got some of our students already in here, so you can give me a little shout out in the links. But for some of you who are not, if you guys want more help in this process, you don't have to struggle through it on your own. We run a live class where we're like this, except for the thing I like about our classes is I get to see you guys. I get to see Zoom faces more. And the slide's wrong. We actually do it for 10 weeks. But for those of you guys who want more of like a real life classroom with real people, just know that it's out there. And I would be more than happy to help you figure out if it's the right fit for you, if it fits within your timeline, what you're trying to accomplish. But we have an awesome experience. We have amazing students. And so if you want to learn with other people and you want to spend more time like this, like talking about how do I really use this stuff, because I know that's what you want, then that's an opportunity for you guys. And I'm going to throw the link in here too for you guys. You guys can, I'm going to copy paste over in the comments. If you guys want to jump on a call and talk through more of it, anyone who signed up for this course, they know, like, I'm not a hard pressure salesman. I don't have to be. The course always fills itself up with the right people. I just want to make sure that I'm helping people. And this is definitely a game changer for a lot of people. So if you do want to connect with me and talk about it, right, as my man Billy says, he's loving the 10-week course. Didn't pay him to say that. He's saying that on his own. Is check out that link that I just sent out for you guys. And if anything, right, even if you don't join the course, I'm happy to offer some insight on like how you can do better with your studies, what you might be struggling on. So either way, I want to hear from you. I would love to connect with you guys. And for those on the webinar, if you are interested, I'm going to offer you guys some exclusive pricing. All right. So there's going to be exclusive pricing for the course. I'm not going to say it out loud right now. If you want to know what it is, connect with me on a call. Otherwise, guys, there's a ton of free resources out there. That's probably what got you here. We got a ton of stuff on YouTube, right? I know many of you guys have the study guide. Use the Facebook group. Lean into other people. Lean into other people. And as I mentioned, if there's anything I can help with you guys outside of this, then please, let's hop on a call. And I would love to just be connected with you guys outside of here. So if we're not connected on Instagram, hit me up. I'm super active on there at Coach Joe Drake. Obviously the AxiomFitnessAcademy.com website. I would love to be connected with you guys, even beyond the certification. So beyond that, guys, I got a minute or two to tackle some questions if we've got any good ones. So let's do this. Let's see what we got over here. All right. Boom, boom, boom. Got over here. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. So Patty, yeah, I will also send for you guys too. I threw the comment out there on the advisor link, but I'm going to send it out in an email too. If you guys are on this webinar, don't you guys worry. I'm going to send it to you guys so you guys have some good ideas. But beyond that, any questions you guys want me to tackle as we finish this off? We finish it off. All right. So someone asked, can we share this? Yeah. I mean, feel free to share this out to anybody, right? We're going to leave this live on a couple different platforms. I'll be sending this out to you guys, all you who are on here or anyone who registered, to be able to use and watch the recording. And I'm also going to send you the slides that I use too. If some of those visuals are helpful for you to think about not just the OPT model, the variables, but also like how that relates to these other sections. I know sometimes that's the challenge, is connecting your content across these different areas. And so whatever resources you guys need, I'm happy to be of assistance for you guys. But as I mentioned, if you guys do want to talk either about the course or you just want some help with where you're at, hit me up. I threw that link out there. I'm also going to send it out to you guys via email, but I appreciate you guys being on here. All right. I got one question I'm going to tackle. One question right here before we get done from Dorito Chip. I love that, over on YouTube. Antagonist and synergistic dominance and all that is relating to. Yeah. So again, guys, there's a lot of terminology. I will say with concepts like this, guys, if you guys search this and you search Axiom on YouTube, I probably already have a great video out there that's broken it down. And this stuff will kind of relate up. So this one's, tougher to tackle in real time. But Dorito Chip, like I said, if you want, check out the link that I posted up, or you can go to the Axiom Fitness Academy website, axiomfitnessacademy.com/speak with an advisor. You'll see there on the website. I'm happy to break this stuff down with any of you guys individually. I just want to see you guys succeed. So I hope this was helpful for you guys, and I hope we stay connected. All right. Let's see. We got one more. Deirdre, how exactly do you get the 1 rep max amount for someone just starting out? Great question. And the answer, honestly, is you don't. I mean, for the most part, most people just beginning, it just doesn't even make sense to do a 1 rep max effort with them. I definitely wouldn't do it until I've had probably like maybe a month or 2 or more of training with someone. And then even from there too, what you can do, even like a 5 rep max, is it perfect? No. But if someone doesn't have a ton of experience training, and honestly relevant to their goals too, I can say I confidently can't tell you the last time I've done a 1 rep max with a client. Doesn't mean it's not valuable, but I would even argue even a lot of people who are training athletes are probably, sometimes it's maybe a 3 rep max, a 5 rep max. I'm not saying there's never a 1 rep max, but you got a high level of risk when you start doing 1 rep maxes. So honestly, I would say many of the exercises you're doing, you probably could estimate weights. Even in a session, like from one exercise to the next, you might just be using that to gauge where you need to be. And truthfully, it's why even your first 2 weeks, I like it. Other people are like, yeah, you don't. Even your first 2 weeks, you're just learning about the client, right? You're learning about their training, how they respond to training. So yeah, don't worry about that. I wouldn't do a 1 rep max with someone right away. I'm happy to tackle that more privately. You want to send me an Instagram message, I can give you some more of my thoughts. At Coach Joe Drake, you can hit me up there. But for the most part, you probably could get away with like 5 rep max estimations. And even that I wouldn't do until I'm really confident that their technique is good enough to do it. Otherwise, you'll be able to fine tune and figure out the weights that they need, especially knowing that we're not jumping right into a max strength phase. So awesome, guys. Well, hey, if you guys have other questions, hit me up on Instagram, or these videos are going to be left live in a couple of places, live on YouTube, live on Facebook. So even if you comment after the fact, I'm going to go back through and make sure I get to you guys. You guys rock. Get out there, get after it. Let's get you past the exam so you can get out and help more people. I believe in you.